Hello, sir. Yes, sir.
Happy New Year.
স্যার
Happy
শুনতে
New Year to
পাচ্ছি।
all of you.
Hi, sir. Happy New Year, sir.
All of you are present now. All of you are there.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Certain things are the last class. Certain points we have left. So I discussed about the different efficiencies, the performance parameters of the engine. I discussed about the thermal efficiency and brake thermal efficiency, indicator thermal efficiency, volumetric efficiency, relative efficiency. These points I have discussed. Now, certain more points are there to be discussed. That is regarding the IPPP and FP. That also I have told you. IP is the power at the engine cylinder, engine piston. BP or brake power is the power which is available at the crankshaft, and friction power is the loss. That is IP minus BP, indicated power minus brake power. Now, when I come back to this IPPP and FP, I'd like to tell you one point, that how to find out this indicated power and brake power and friction power. This, in a very nutshell, I can tell you, with the definition of a new term, which is called mean effective pressure. And this mean effective pressure is a hypothetical pressure. It's not a real life pressure. Understand? It's an abstract pressure. And this has been defined as the hypothetical pressure, which if we suppose that this pressure is acting on the piston uniformly throughout the suction stroke or throughout a complete stroke, then the total amount of work done by the gas on the piston will be equal to the cycle work, that is work done in a cycle of the engine. So that is the definition of the mean effective pressure. Mean effective pressure is defined as the hypothetical pressure which, if it acts on the piston undiminished uniformly throughout the power stroke, will produce an amount of work equal to the work done by the engine in one cycle. That is the mean effective pressure. Could you catch me? Hello? This mean
Sir,
effective.
can you repeat the statement again?
If you want to write, please write it.
Yes,
Please
sir.
write it. Then I think it will be better. Mean effective pressure. You give the heading. Mean effective pressure. MEP. Mean effective pressure. Right? And this within bracket you write MEP. Bracket close. Next, the definition. It is defined. Mean effective pressure is defined as the hypothetical pressure. Hypothetical means imaginary. It is defined as the hypothetical pressure which, if it acts on the piston,
স্যার আরেকবার বলুন।
mean effective pressure is the hypothetical pressure.
স্যার শোনা গেল না, কথাটা কেটে গেল।
Mean effective pressure. Can you hear me now? Mean MEN.
শুনতে পাচ্ছি।
Mean effective pressure, MEN, mean. I am spelling the word M for Madras, E for Inland, A for Ahmedabad, N for Nagpur. Mean. Can you get the word mean?
Yes, sir.
স্যার
Yes,
এবারে
sir.
শুনতে পাচ্ছি স্যার।
শুনতে পাচ্ছ? Mean effective pressure. শুনতে পাচ্ছ?
হ্যাঁ স্যার শুনতে পাচ্ছি।
দেখো, it is defined as the hypothetical pressure. It is defined as the hypothetical pressure such that it is defined as the hypothetical pressure such that if it acts, if it acts on the piston, if it acts on the piston uniformly through the power stroke, uniformly through the power stroke, uniformly through the power stroke, comma, then it will produce an amount of work, equal to the work done by the engine in a complete cycle, equal to the work done by the engine in a complete cycle. Equal to the work done by the engine in a complete cycle. So this, if you have completed this writing, then I'll proceed.
Sir, can you please repeat the one thing, I mean, just quickly again?
Mean
Yes,
effective pressure, MEAN, mean effective
Yes, sir, yes.
pressure within bracket MEP, bracket closed. It is defined as the hypothetical pressure such that if it acts on the piston uniformly throughout the power stroke, then it would produce an amount of work equal to the work done by the engine in a complete cycle.
Okay, sir.
Is it okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Actually, now look at this sketch. You see, I have made a P versus V sketch, pressure versus volume sketch. This sketch is about the properties of the gas inside the cylinder. That is, just imagine that the gas which is trapped between the cylinder head and the cylinder. Now, for that gas, if you plot the pressure versus volume, then you get this actual diagram. Just a minute, I'll take a phone. Hello? Ciao. Acha. So, after that discussion, after that definition, I'll request you just refer to this PV diagram. This is the actual indicator diagram. You can see the curved lines. There is a suction line and the compression line and the power stroke or expansion line and exhaust line. This A and B, just look at A and B. These are the two loops. A is the positive loop, B is the negative loop. And this net area, that is A minus B, is equal to the work output in the in one cycle. This A and B together makes one cycle. This is a thermodynamic cycle, actual engine cycle. So total work output by the engine in one cycle will be equal to area of A minus area of B. Because I tell you one thing, integral PDV is equal to work transfer in a particular process. Integral PDV is the work transfer, that you know. Now if I consider a cycle, that if we can consider the cyclic integral of PDV, that is for on all the processes, if you calculate the PDV, integral PDV for all the processes, then you sum together, you will get the cyclic integral of PDV, and that is equal to the net work output in this cycle. And this net work output is equal to, if you can find out the area A and area B by any device, area A and area B, area A indicates some kilojoules, area B indicates some kilojoules. So A minus B is the net kilojoules, that is the net work output, A minus B, that is the work output of the cycle. Now the mean effective pressure I have shown is PMI. You consider PMI, I have written PM here, but you can consider PMI. I, this suffix stands for indicated mean effective pressure. I am writing indicated mean effective pressure. Where I have written PM, you consider PMI. PMI into VS. VS is the stroke length, right? So PMI into VS, that is equal to your cycle work. This is the equation which we get from the definition of PM. PM is the mean effective pressure, PMI, that is indicated mean effective pressure, and it is equal to the cycle work divided by VS. What is the cycle work? Cycle work is work done in a cycle. So what will be the indicated power of the engine? See, I have told you already that indicated power is the power indicated by the indicated diagram. What is the indicated diagram? The diagram which I have drawn. That is loop A and loop B together. That is the indicator diagram. This diagram is the real life pressure volume plot of the gas in between the cylinder and the piston. Now, per cycle, if the work output is PMI into VS, then the total work output will be, if N is the RPM, that is revolution per minute of the engine. Revolution per minute is the revolution per minute of the crankshaft. When we say the revolution per minute of the engine as the speed of the engine, it means the revolution per minute of the crankshaft. Just imagine in the previous day's drawing that the cylinder, piston, connecting rod, crank and crankshaft. The crankshaft rotates by n revolutions per minute, per second n by 60 revolutions. And if it is a 4-stroke engine, I have done it for a 4-stroke engine. If it is a 4-stroke engine, then 2 revolutions correspond to 1 cycle. 2 revolutions for a 4-stroke engine correspond to 1 cycle. So n revolution means n by 2 cycles. N by 2 cycles will be completed in 1 minute, that is n by 2 by 60 cycles per second. So n by 2 into 60, n by 120, this is the number of cycles per second. And PMI VS. PMI is the mean effective pressure, its unit will be kilonewton per square meter. VS is the stroke volume in meter cube. So PMI into VS will be kilonewton meter, that is kilojoules. And n by 2 into 60, this is per second, cycles per second. So we can, if you multiply, you will get kilonewton meter per second, or kilojoules per second, or kilowatt. That is the indicated power. Now, if we have to find out the indicated power, Then we have to know the mean effective pressure, PMI. In order to determine PMI, see what we have done. Look at the diagram now. See, area A minus B, that is the net area, net work, output of the cycle. Equal to that area, I have drawn a rectangle. Just take the rectangle. Hello? Hello? হ্যাঁ বলুন. Now you see the equal to the area A minus B. A minus B is a area. Equal to that area, I have drawn a rectangle. One side of that rectangle is VS. The other side is PMI. So I have plotted a rectangle having an area equal to the net area of the cycle. So A minus B is equal to PMI into VS. So from this, if you can plot the indicator diagram, actually we can plot the indicator diagram by a device which is known as the indicator. There is a mechanical indicator, there is an electrical indicator, there is an electronic indicator, digital type. So using that, you can plot the real-time PV diagram of an engine, and from that diagram, you can also draw the rectangle which is having an area equal to A minus B. And if one arm of the rectangle is VS, the other arm, that is the vertical side, that is PMI, that is called the mean effective pressure indicated. So that is how we can determine the mean effective pressure. If we know the mean effective pressure, if we know the VS, if we know the N can be recorded by a tachometer. VS is recordable by the engine size, pi by 4 d square into L. B being the diameter of the piston, L is the length of the stroke. So if D is the diameter of the piston or the cylinder, L is the length of stroke, pi by 4 d square L is VS, into PMI. That PMI is recorded by the indicator diagram. From the diagram, if we divide the area, net area of the diagram by the VS, you get PMI. So finally, we can write this pi by 4 d square L into PM into N by 2 into 60. This is equal to indicated power. So this is one way of determining the indicated power. Or in other words, if you have the indicated power by some other means, then you can, by using this equation, by knowing the diameter of the piston and the cylinder, and also the stroke length L, and also by determining the RPM of the engine by a tachometer, you can easily find out the mean effective pressure, PMI. This part is understandable or not? Hello? Could you follow this? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Nice. Now we'll go to the next part, that is brake pressure. As I said, indicated pressure is the pressure which is indicated at the piston. Brake pressure is the pressure which is coming at the output shaft, that is the crankshaft of the engine. Similar to the indicated pressure, we can also write an expression for brake pressure. Brake pressure is PMB. Like in case of indicated mean effective pressure, I have written PMI. In case of brake pressure, I can write PMB. Brake mean effective pressure, that is called. Mean effective pressure, brake mean effective pressure, PMB into VS. VS is the stroke volume into N by 2 into 60. So this is the brake power expression, putting the value of VS pi by 4 d square L into PMB into N by 2 60. So these two expressions I have given you because there will be some numerical problems given in the exercise. Some numerical problems can be set in the exam also, where we can provide you with the data of indicated power and brake power, and your idea, your job will be to find out the mean effective pressure. Or if the mean effective pressure and the engine dimensions are given and the RPM is given, you can find out the brake power and indicated power. Knowing the indicated power and the brake power, you can find out the friction power. We call it friction power, but this is not an output power. This is a loss of power, and this is the difference between the indicated power and the brake power, IP minus BP, because you know that the power flow occurs from the piston to the crankshaft, and when it comes from the piston to the crankshaft, it has to come across the connecting rod and the crank, and there are frictions at different points between the piston pin and the connecting rod, between the cylinder and the piston, between the crank pin and the connecting rod, between the crankshaft and the crankshaft bearing. So many interfaces are there. All these interfaces, there will be some frictional loss. Sum total that loss, plus you add up the work loss during the pumping loop, that is the suction, compression and exhaust process, you get the friction power, and that friction power you can calculate as the difference between the indicated power and brake power. So this thing actually I could not discuss because of paucity of time in the last class. So today I have discussed it. Another term which I'd like to tell you is about the fuel-air ratio or air-fuel ratio. This fuel-air ratio or air-fuel ratio is the ratio between the mass of fuel and mass of air. Mass of fuel and mass of air, which is required for the engine running operation, that MF divided by MA, that is the fuel-air ratio. Now here you see fuel-air ratio, there may be a theoretical fuel-air ratio, there may be an actual fuel-air ratio. That is the actual fuel-air ratio is the fuel-air ratio which is the engine is working. Now the equivalence ratio phi is determined based on there is a term which is called equivalence ratio. Equivalence ratio or phi. This indicates to what extent the fuel-air mixture is rich or lean. So it is the actual fuel-air ratio by the stoichiometric fuel-air ratio. Now, what is the stoichiometric fuel-air ratio? I need to tell you what is that. See, the stoichiometric fuel-air ratio is the mass ratio of fuel and air, which is worked out based on the chemical reaction equation between fuel and air, assuming complete combustion of 1 kg mass of fuel by the required quantity of air. Do you understand what I said? Stoichiometric or chemically correct fuel-air ratio is the ratio between the mass of fuel and mass of air, which is worked out, calculated based on the chemical reaction equation between the fuel and the air, assuming complete combustion of the fuel by air. If you have problem in accepting that, you can read any book on thermodynamics, preferably G.J. Van Willen, the book by G.J. Van Willen on engineering thermodynamics, or you can take any book of thermodynamics, or you can get the fuel-air ratio written, and you can see that thing in the book by V. Ganeshan also. For your reference, I can give you an example. Suppose the fuel is CH4, methane. Then if the fuel is CH4, then what is the chemical reaction equation? CH4 plus, see, from one C you will get one CO2. and from H4 you will get 2 H2O. So there will be 2O2. So if you write the equation CH4 plus 2O2, CH4 plus 2O2, it becomes CO2 plus 2H2O. Can you follow me? CH4 plus 2O2, that is CO2 plus 2H2O. This is the chemically correct or chemical combustion equation of CH4 with oxygen. So from this equation, you see left hand side is reactant side, right hand side is products of combustion side. So we can easily find out for 1 kg mass of fuel, that is CH4, how much will be the mass of oxygen required, how much will be the mass of air required. This we can calculate. If we can calculate that, the mass ratio between fuel and air will be termed the stoichiometric fuel-air ratio. I'll show you how to calculate this stoichiometric fuel-air ratio for isooctane, which is the chief constituent of gasoline or petrol. So that I will work out and I will show you. The next class that I will show you. So, but one thing I'd like to tell you, the thing that I was highlighting is that particular exercise which I have done, that is IPBP, FP and the equivalence ratio, that is regarding previous days exercise, and with this we have completed the chapter on the basic concepts of the engine, and lots of problems are worked out in the textbook. Around 10-15 problems are there in the book by Ganeshan. I'll request you just have a go through in that chapter the worked out problems, and you can easily understand these problems. If you get any problem in understanding, then you can obviously refer it to me. You can call me over phone or you can raise it in the class. So till now we have completed two chapters. One is the chapter on air standard cycle. The second is the chapter on basic concepts, where we have discussed about the internal combustion, external combustion engines, and we have discussed the nomenclature of the engine. We have discussed about the different engine components. We have discussed about the spark ignition, compression ignition engines, and the 2-stroke, 4-stroke engines, and also the valve timing diagrams, as well as the engine performance parameters. So this part we have done already. Now we are coming into the next chapter, carburetor.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, in the equivalence ratio, how the actual air fuel ratio is obtained?
Yes. How the actual air fuel ratio is obtained? Suppose you have a particular engine running at a particular speed, right? Now, how much fuel you are adding? How much fuel you are adding per unit time? That can be recorded. That recording can be done. How much fuel you are supplying? Of course, it requires a rig. It requires an experimental device. And that part, of course, we'll have to discuss in some other chapter. But I'll just tell you in the nutshell that you can find out how much air you are handling, how much fuel you are handling. How much fuel you are handling, you can record. The fuel tank is there. How much the fuel level in the fuel tank is going down per unit time. That can be recorded. From that, knowing the tank's cross section, we can find out how much volume of fuel is going down, and from that, multiplying by the density of the fuel, how much mass of fuel is being utilized. From that, how much weight is fuel being utilized in a particular time. Suppose I take 1 minute time or 5 minutes time, how much fuel is used. That we can easily find out. That is the fuel mass flow rate. And for air, how much air is utilized, that we can find out from the different parameters of the engine, that is the engine RPM and the cylinder diameter, piston diameter, the stroke length of the engine, and also the volumetric efficiency of the engine, how much air is being actually used, that we can find out. And from that we can find out the mass flow rate of engine by mass flow rate of air, that is the fuel air. Mass flow rate of fuel by mass flow rate of air, that is the fuel air ratio. That is the actual fuel air ratio, because this is based on some experiment. We are doing some experiment. From that experiment, if we get it, we will call it actual fuel air ratio. And then we divide it by the stoichiometric fuel air ratio. This stoichiometric is something theoretical. That when you consider, suppose the fuel that we are using in the engine is C8H18. It is called isooctane. Suppose that fuel is C8H18. Now, what is the chemical reaction equation for C8H18? That we know that. That is C8H18 plus 12.5 O2 is equal to HCO2 plus 9H2O. Plus heat is coming out. Now, we can find out how much oxygen is reacting with how much C8H18. From that, we can find out how much air is reacting with how much H18. You understand, because air contains 23.2% by mass of oxygen. So if you know the mass ratio of the fuel C8H18 and O2, you can also calculate the mass ratio of C8H18 and air. That is the fuel air ratio, that is called the stoichiometric or theoretical fuel air ratio. Now, when you divide the actual fuel air ratio available from the experiment with the stoichiometric fuel air ratio, you are getting the equivalence ratio.
Sir, do this experiment done with the help of engine control unit?
Pardon?
Do these operations or these experiments are done by engine control unit?
Yes. This, you see, what we are now discussing is the performance parameters, right? So in these performance parameters, whatever things we are discussing, all the things are experimentally determinable. Like indicated power can be determined, brake power can be determined, friction power can be determined, efficiencies, mechanical efficiency and other efficiencies, thermal efficiencies can be determined. So everything is experimentally determinable. Okay, and for that, there is a chapter, you can also read that chapter, that is called Performance and Testing. That chapter is also there in your book by V. Ganeshan. Actually, what I am discussing now is a part of that chapter, Performance and Testing. But since it is written in the first basic concepts chapter, so I am discussing it in the basic concepts chapter. But basically in the textbook, it is written in the Performance and Testing chapter. You can read that chapter.
Okay, sir. Thank you,
Okay.
sir. Thank you, sir.
Next thing that we are going to discuss is carburation and carburetor. This is the next chapter that we are now going to study. Carburetor, you can see, it is the, now we are coming to the next item where our objective will be to determine how the fuel is introduced. How fuel is injected or introduced into the cylinder. So there are two broad varieties, SI and CI engines. For the SI engines, spark ignition engines, you know that the petrol is the fuel. And what is the charge? Charge means what is the gas that is inducted or sucked. In the SI engine, during suction, we are producing, we are supplying a mixture of fuel, that is petrol vapor, and air. A mixture of petrol vapor and air is produced first. That is produced in a device called carburetor. So when we are trying to inject, or when we are trying to introduce the fuel into the engine, we do not do it crudely. What we do is that, first of all, we have got a device. Name of the device is called a carburetor. The process is called carburation. In that device, we mix up air and fuel. This mixing of air and fuel is done not manually but automatically based on the engine response, engine speed and engine load. How much mass of air, how much mass of fuel has to be mixed together. That is automatically determined, and we produce that much mass of air and fuel mixture in the carburetor. And then that carburetor is attached to the engine intake cylinder. You can see this diagram. I have drawn a diagram, simple float type, downtake type carburetor schematic diagram. Here you see we have, this is the cylinder. This is our engine cylinder, and here we have the piston. I have not drawn the connecting rod. Now there are two valves on the at the top of the cylinder. This is the suction valve. There is the exhaust valve or delivery valve, and you can see the delivery valve is closed now. The suction valve is open. Piston is going down. Now this is the pipeline, which is called the intake manifold, and this pipeline is connected to this device. This is called the carburetor, right? This is called the, from here to here, this device is called the carburetor, right? This carburetor is basically a pipeline. You can see it is just a pipeline, but inside that pipeline we have got some internal complications. Like here inside the pipeline we have got a convergent divergent nozzle type configuration. This is you have read about convergent divergent nozzle. Have you read? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Convergent divergent nozzle, have you read?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir.
There is a convergent divergent nozzle here inside the
Oh, yes.
carburetor. This is called a venturi. This convergent divergent nozzle, as you can see, is called a venturi. VNTURI. And air is coming from the top. If you look at this diagram, air is coming from the top, entering from the top. There is a valve here. This valve is called the choke valve or choke. Now this valve is always kept open. When the engine has to run, this choke valve opening is not changed. So as you see, this valve is open now, and air is capable of entering into the pipeline. Why the air will enter? Because here in the cylinder, piston is going down. So if the piston goes down, and if this valve, intake valve, if this valve is kept open, if the piston goes down, then this volume will increase, and it will produce a partial vacuum here. In order to fill up that vacuum, there is a small opening between the valve and the valve seat. So when the partial vacuum is created, air will have to flow. Now where from the air will come? Air will come from the atmosphere. This carburetor we have drawn for a naturally aspirated engine. So this is the atmosphere. from the atmosphere air will come because there will be a pressure differential, pressure drop created inside the cylinder. Now this pressure drop, you see, if you consider this line, the center line of the carburetor, along this line there is a pressure gradient, pressure drops. This is the pressure here, it is atmospheric pressure. This is PA or P atmosphere. And as we proceed, pressure gradually drops. It comes to the inlet of the venturi, some pressure is there. We can consider this is also equal to atmospheric pressure PA. Let's say if we consider that this drop is negligible, this is atmospheric pressure. Now from here, as the flow occurs, because of the constriction here, the area gradually decreases. So the velocity of the air from this point to this point to this point to this point, gradually the velocity will increase, because you know that if you reduce the area of flow, and if it is a steady flow process, then if the volume flow rate is constant through different sections, then volume flow rate Q is equal to your area multiplied by the velocity. Now velocity, therefore area going down, so velocity will increase here. Gradually it will increase. So as you know that when the when a compressible fluid flows through a convergent nozzle, gradually the velocity increases, and this is the point where the cross-sectional area becomes the lowest. Now if you can imagine this thing, this is basically a funnel type of thing. This is a three-dimensional thing. It's a pipeline. Inside the pipeline we have got a convergent nozzle. So here the velocity becomes maximum because the area of flow is minimum. After that, the area again increases gradually and the velocity decreases. So we find a constant acceleration of the mass particles of the air as the air is coming down and down. At the throat, the acceleration, because of extreme acceleration, extreme velocity increase. The pressure here is the minimum, because as the velocity increases from point to point, the pressure drops. Here the pressure is something, then here the velocity increases, pressure is slightly less. Here the velocity increases, pressure is slightly less. Can you hear me? Hello? You can understand?
Sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I want to tell you is that through a convergent nozzle, as the air flows, the velocity gradually increases and the pressure gradually decreases. And at the throat, the pressure is the minimum and the velocity is the maximum. Now this is a valve which is called a throttle valve. This valve is rotatable about this axis, and this is connected through a linkage to the governor. Governor is a device which we have not drawn here. It's a device which is sensing the change of speed of the engine with respect to load. Now when the governor sends a signal that the engine load has changed, that the flow rate of air has to be changed or something has to be done, the opening of this valve, you see the opening is here, the opening is there. So this valve can either close this flow passage or it can fully open this flow passage. Either it is 0% open or it is 100% open.
ভালভটার এখানটা একবার বলবেন, ভালভটার এখানটা একবার বলবেন, ভালভের অপারেশন। হ্যাঁ,
throttle valve.
হ্যাঁ, throttle valve.
This throttle valve, this is just like a circular plate. Just imagine a circular plate of 1 rupee coin, or say 50 paise coin. See, like that only. And then there is a diametral plane. This is a diametral line. See, this straight line is the side view of that circular plate. You understand? It is a side view of the circular plate. This is the diametral line. About that diametral line, this plate can rotate. Now what happens? By rotating this, I can either make this plate vertical or I can make this plate horizontal. If it is vertical, then it allows the entire amount of air. If it is horizontal, does not allow any amount of air. That is the thing. So the airflow can be controlled
Okay.
by operating this throttle valve. Now, how the throttle valve will be operated? It is not operated manually. There is a lever. There is a lever here. This lever goes to the governor. So there is a linkage, you can see. There is a mechanical
Okay.
governor. Automatically, when the speed of the engine increases or decreases with respect to a set value, then the opening of this valve changes. So let us accept that the opening of the valve changes. And when the valve opening changes, then airflow through this will also change. If the valve opening changes, then the airflow through this will also change. Now for a particular airflow, there is a particular profile of pressure in this region. That is, the pressure was dropping in a particular manner. You can plot the curve for pressure drop. So it will be something from here to here, and then again here to here, there will be a pressure rise. But you know, the pressure drop here and the pressure rise there will not be equal. That means the amount of drop in pressure here from this point to this point is not equal to amount of pressure rise from here to here. So in effect, I mean, the pressure rise is less. So we are getting from this point to this point a net pressure drop. And because of that, the airflow increases through this. When you open the throttle valve more, then the airflow also increases. But as a result of that, the pressure here will gradually drop and drop. When the airflow increases, the pressure drop will be very high and the pressure at this point will be very low. Now, this point is connected through a small pipeline to a tank. This is called the fuel tank. Small tank. This is not the main fuel tank, small fuel tank. And here we have got petrol fuel, and we have got a ball float valve. This is a valve, and this is a fixed point, and this is a valve body. So when the fuel level here drops, the ball drops, and as a result of that, the valve body comes in this direction and opens this point, and the fuel will enter. So when the fuel line drops here, fuel will enter, and when the fuel line increases here, this ball float will rise up. So this thing will move in the rightward direction. We will close the valve seal, and no fuel will be able to come. So that is the operation of this float tank. And here we have got a vent to atmosphere. It's a vent connection to the atmosphere, meaning that pressure of the atmosphere here and pressure of the atmosphere here are equal, and that is equal to the atmospheric pressure which is coming on the surface of the fuel. Now, whatever is the pressure drop between the atmospheric pressure and this point, same is the pressure drop between this point, because here also the pressure is same as the atmospheric pressure, and here the pressure drop is there. So what will happen? As a result of this drop in pressure in the air line, the fuel circuit also there will be some drop in pressure, and as a result of that, fuel will be coming through the small capillary into the throat. And here at the pipeline, fuel pipeline, at the exit of the fuel pipeline, there is a orifice. There is a small opening, a small valve, which is called the orifice valve. And through that orifice, when the fuel comes out, it gains in its kinetic energy. And as a result, you know, the fuel is a highly volatile chemical. And because the pressure drop across the fuel is pretty high, the fuel velocity is also very high, and the fuel will come out through this in the vaporized form. And some fuel will be in the liquid form, some fuel will be in the vaporized form. That liquid fuel and vapor fuel mixture will mix with the air, it will be carried by the air, carried with the air, and it will come through this opening, and it will come through this valve, intake valve, into the cylinder. That is how the intake of air and fuel mixture occurs. So if you have understood this, then I'll tell you what is the meaning of carburetor. Have you understood this? Please think once again. I'll once again then explain.
Sir, can you explain the fuel tank part?
অনেক ক্ষেত্রেই দেখা যাচ্ছে মানুষের মধ্যে এই ধারণা হচ্ছে এই ক্যান্সার নিলাম পরের থেকে আমি করোনা মুক্ত এবং এই কারণে প্রচুর মন্ত্রী এবং অনেক সিনিয়র লোক কিন্তু বিদেশে অ্যাডমিটেড হচ্ছে। সুতরাং মনে রাখতে হবে ভ্যাকসিন আমি নিয়েও আগামী 6 সপ্তাহ আমাকে মাস্ক পরিয়ে রাখতে হবে, তারপর আমরা মাস্ক থেকে বেরিয়ে আসবো। আশা করা যায়
Hello. Have you understood the working principle of this simple float type, downtake type carburetor?
স্যার আবার থ্রটল ভালভের পরে একটু বলবেন?
আচ্ছা, আমি আরেকবার বলছি পুরোটা।
স্যার
আচ্ছা, একটা কথা তোমাদের বলছি, have you seen the name float type? Float type means this is called the float. This is the float valve. This is the float, ball float, and this entire thing is called the float valve. So float type, that means this is the float. Downtake type, because here the air is coming in the downward direction. Air is coming in the downward direction. That means compared to the engine cylinder, this carburetor is placed slightly above the level wise. So the air, if it is a vertical engine, carburetor is here, so the air is coming downward. This is a downtake type carburetor. There may be some carburetor where the air is not coming in this vertically downward direction. Like the carburetor is placed in such a way that the air is coming vertically upward, then it is coming into the engine. So that is the uptake type. But this is not a this is a downtake type carburetor. Actually, this downtake type of carburetors are more frequently used, more common actually, more frequently used. That's why we have drawn this. Now in this downtake carburetor, our objective is, you please write one line. One line you can write. A carburetor is a device please write. A carburetor is a device where fuel and air are homogeneously mixed. Fuel and air are homogeneously mixed In a mass flow rate, a carburetor is a device where fuel and air are homogeneously mixed in a mass flow rate that is dictated by the speed and load of the engine. Have you written it? A carburetor is a device used for mixing air and fuel, where air and fuel are mixed together in a homogeneous manner. That is, the mixing is homogeneous. Homogeneous means that if you analyze any point, the ratio of air and fuel mass will be same everywhere. There is no variation. So that is why we call the mixture a homogeneous mixture. So carburetor is a device used for mixing air and fuel homogeneously in a mass ratio that is dictated by the speed and load of the engine. Speed and load of the engine. Could you write it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So that is the purpose of a carburetor. You can see it has got two operations. One is that mixing of air and fuel. Mixing of air and fuel homogeneously. That is so that the mass ratio of air and fuel is uniform everywhere. And third one is mixing of air and fuel homogeneously by a mass ratio which is dependent on the speed and load of the engine. Means the speed and load, if they change, then the mass ratio also of air and fuel also gets changed. So that is the important thing about a carburetor. That first thing is mixing of air and fuel. Second thing is mixing them in a homogeneous manner. Third is mixing them in a mass ratio which is dependent on the speed and load of the engine. Have you got the carburetor idea? Actually, today our objective is to explain what is a carburetor with a pictorial diagram, and then next day we'll discuss the mathematical analysis of the carburetor in order to find out the fuel air ratio. Just one sec I am taking, you just note with him. Hello? Have you,
Yes, sir.
I took some break actually for 1 minute. Thing is that after we have got what is a carburetor, now I want to explain it once again. See, this is, can I explain it now? This is our cylinder.
Yes, sir.
This is the cylinder piston of the engine. This is the intake valve, suction valve, this is the exhaust valve. And this is the exhaust, this is the pipeline, this is called the exhaust manifold. This is the intake manifold through which the intake air comes. Intake air and intake fuel mixture. Air and fuel mixture comes through this, and through this the products of combustion are exhausted. Now, hello? बोलो. Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. You are audible, sir.
Actually, some phone in our house actually there are some, gross electrical problem. That's why some work was going on. That's why had to talk. Acha. Now, what I was telling is that this is the intake manifold, right? That is through this the air fuel mixture will come. Now this part plus this means this tank plus this pipeline plus this venturi plus this valve plus this valve. There are two valves here. This is called the choke valve. This is called the throttle valve. This is the venturi and this is the pipeline. And this is the fuel tank with ball float valve, and this is the connection of the fuel. This entire thing is called the carburetor. Though it looks such a big thing, but actually it is a very small item. Very small. Very small means how small, you know? This portion that is from here to here, this portion will be something like 3 to 4 centimeters. This portion to this portion will be 3 to 4 centimeters. Just consider 3 to 4 centimeters. Now that much will be the length. So this is not a very big thing, not a very bulky thing. Now inside this is a pipeline basically. And this pipeline, through this the air is coming from the top in a downward direction. Why the air is coming? Because this choke valve is open and the throttle valve is initially we consider it to be open. And when the piston inside goes down, when it goes down, the pressure inside the cylinder will gradually fall. There will be a negative pressure or a vacuum created here. And along this line, there will be a pressure gradient. I mean, the pressure will be dropping through this entire line up to this. So there will be a flow of air in this portion. Now, when the air enters from this point, this is the atmospheric pressure. Now, when it enters here, from this point to this point, we assume that because this distance is very short, we can assume that the pressure drop is quite small, negligibly small. Now, from this point, there is the entry point to the convergent divergent nozzle. Gradually the cross-section area decreases. If you think this is the cross-section area, the diameter gradually decreases. So the cross-section area also decreases. Depending on that, if you consider the continuity equation, considering that if you consider the continuity equation, then rho v is constant. That is density area into velocity is constant.
Mass per second.
That the area is rapidly decreasing, the velocity is increasing. Up to this point, it is increasing. After that, beyond this point, the velocity is decreasing because the cross-section area increases. And consequent to the increase in velocity, that is the acceleration region, there will be a reduction in pressure. Why this should happen? This happens if you consider the compressible fluid flow equations, conservation of momentum equation or conservation of energy principle. If you consider the continuity equation, from everything you will see that as the velocity gradually increases, the pressure will drop. If you consider the Bernoulli's equation, though Bernoulli's equation is not applicable here for a compressible fluid, but if you consider the conservation of energy equation, steady state flow energy equation, then also you will see that the pressure drops. And the pressure becomes a minimum at the throat. This portion we call a throat of the venturi. Pressure is minimum. That means between this point and this point, there is a big pressure drop. From this point to this point, there is a very big pressure drop. And you see, in this tank, when there is a fuel, some fuel surface line is there, and here the pressure is, this is vented to the atmosphere. So this pressure at this point and pressure at this point, they are equal. So these two pressures are both atmospheric pressure. Now the pressure drop between this point and the throat is equal to the pressure drop between this point and the throat. As a result, what will happen? This is a capillary, and the fuel will have no option but to rise along this pipeline. And this vertical rise from here to here will require some pressure head. That, you know, the pressure drop between this point and this point is so large. Pressure drop between this point and this point is so large that that much pressure drop is available, and the fuel will come here. It will come here, and at this point there is a orifice. What is an orifice? Orifice is a very small diameter constriction, and because of that, in the orifice region, that is here, the pipeline has some diameter which is quite small, so there is some velocity of the fuel. But in the orifice region, which is here, the flow area is much reduced, so the velocity will be much increased, and when the fuel comes out, it will be at a high velocity, high velocity jet. And because of that high velocity, what will happen? There will be separation between the fuel particles. If you consider a fluid, the fluid, when it moves at a high velocity, because of the high acceleration that is produced, from the previous point to the next point to the next point to the next point, the fluid particles have do suffer a separation. Separation means it will not be a continuous line of fuel. It will be, the continuity will be broken, and the fuel will be divided into small droplets at the mouth of the orifice. And because they are divided into very small droplets, we'll call them atomization. This process we are calling atomization. Atomization doesn't mean that they will be divided into atoms, not that. But because they are very fine liquid droplets, we call them atomization, this process atomization. And because of that, hello?
Yeah, so in which part it takes place, atomization?
Atomization takes place here at the exit from this tube. This tube is going inside to the throat. So at this point it is occurring.
Droplets, okay.
And what happens? Supposing that 1 gram of fuel is coming, just imagine, or say 1.5 gram of fuel is coming in a particular time, say in 1 second, 1 gram is coming. And that 1 gram is divided into, say, 1 million droplets, or more than, say, maybe 10 million droplets. So you can understand what will be the size, what will be the diameter of each droplet. And each droplet has a 4 pi r square surface area. If it is a spherical droplet, 4 pi r square surface area for each one of them. And if there is 1 million or 10 million droplets, what is the total surface area of the droplets? And this much surface area is exposed to the air. Now, because this is a very volatile fluid, what will happen? Because the air is also moving, and because the air is having a pressure drop within itself because of its high speed, these small droplets will start vaporizing. Why vaporizing occurs? When we have a spherical droplet, if the pressure above that spherical surface gradually decreases, suddenly decreases. If the pressure suddenly decreases, then the grid line, the surface tension lines on the surface of the sphere will break, liberating the fluid drops, I'll not call them drops, liberating the fluid particles. They will come out of the surface and they will pick up some heat, because in order to become vapor, they require some heat. Because they are volatile, they are ready to evaporate. Their character is that they become volatile. So they will pick up heat from whatever space they can get, this side, that side, from the venturi surface, and they will become vapor. This vapor, another phone has come, this vapor, fuel vapor mixes with the air. Hello? Fuel will become very fine droplets, and from those fine droplets they will produce vapor, and that vapor mixes with the onrushing, ongoing air stream, and it comes out, goes out through the duct, that is the pipeline, goes through the intake manifold. Now the important and interesting thing is that we want a homogeneous mixture. Homogeneous mixture means we do not want a variation of the mass flow rate of air and fuel from point to point inside the stream. That is, inside the stream, if you take different points, you should get the same mass flow rate. How it is ensured? This is ensured because of the high velocity of the air stream. Because air is moving at a high velocity and the fuel is also coming with a very high velocity. With a high velocity they are mixing, and then the products after mixing, they will disperse very fast, making their mixture more or less, because if the velocity was not high, then the chance of getting a homogeneous mixture would have been less. But because the velocity is very high, and because the flow region, that is the length of duct through which it is flowing prior to entry to the cylinder, is also appreciable. So we are supposed to get a homogeneous air-fuel mixture. And inside the cylinder also, where the piston is getting down and down and down, the fuel-air mixture enters here. And this, because there is a vortex that is created inside the cylinder, the high velocity eddies are formed inside, and because of vortex, that is fluid flow phenomenon, and because of that there will be further mixing between air and fuel, and it will become a homogeneous mixture. So this is the
vortexটা স্যার এই পিস্টনের উপরে হচ্ছে।
Yes. Any question?
স্যার একটা
তো না, vortexটা কি ওই পিস্টনের উপরে হচ্ছে?
হ্যাঁ, ভর্টেক্সটা পিস্টনের উপরে হবে। তার কারণটা হলো because the piston is going down, at a high velocity. Piston speed is quite high, so it is rather sucking the entire air vertically downwards. So above, the central line, if you consider, on either side of the central line there will be one vortex produced, one here and there is there, and the vortex will be in the vertical plane. It will be a vertical plane vortex. And basically it's a three-dimensional object, but it is you can consider an elliptic vortex. It's a ellipsoid rather, yeah. And that includes high velocity rotating particles, and that will result in the final mixing, homogeneous mixing. Now what I was trying to tell you is that how we are going to change the mass flow rate. See, supposing that the throttle valve is open by say a certain amount, say 20% opening of the throttle valve is there, some mass flow rate we are getting. But suddenly, suppose the load on the engine increases. Suddenly the governor sends the signal and the throttle valve opening increases here. Suddenly the airflow pattern all changes. The pressure drop, the profile of pressure and the profile of velocity in this region will entirely change. As a result, the mass flow rate of fuel also will change, and therefore if it is required that more load has to be taken care, so more mass of fuel will come, more mass of air will also come because of extended opening of the throttle valve. So more air and more fuel will get mixed together. If it is required just reverse, that if the engine load has got reduced, diminished, then the throttle valve will close by certain amount. the area, passage area of airflow will be less. That will reduce the mass flow rate of air, and that will reduce the pressure drop here, and that will reduce the fuel flow also to certain extent, so that the mass flow rate of air fuel also, mass flow ratio of air fuel and air also gets changed. So this is the very versatile device known as a carburetor. Nowadays, of course, in all SI engines, carburetors are also used. Apart from that, there is a multi-point fuel injection system, or MPFI system, also is used. Previously, the SI engines were not provided with injection. They were provided with only carburation. Nowadays, because the carburetor has got some drawback also, I'll discuss those drawbacks. What are the drawbacks? So in order to take care of those drawbacks, we are using the MPFI system. That we'll discuss in a later class. But this is something which we have told you the hardware only, the engine, the details of the carburetor, the details of the fuel tank and all these things, and the engine I have told you. But next day I'll be giving you the analysis. That is the conservation of energy and conservation of momentum equation analysis. And that will lead us to the exact way of how to find out the mass flow rate of air, mass flow rate of fuel, mass flow rate ratio of air and fuel, how to find out the fuel air ratio depending on the pressure change in this eventually. That we'll discuss in the next class. Okay. Is it okay for today?
Sir, I had a question.
Yeah. Always.
Sir, at the beginning of the class, you mentioned the topics that we have covered so far. Can you repeat those topics again?
See, when we started with the what is a engine. Then we said what is a heat engine. Then we said what is a combustion. Then we discussed what is the heat engine, and then what are the two broad categories, that is external combustion and internal combustion. As regards the combustion process is concerned, there are two broad categories, external combustion, internal combustion. And out of that, we discussed a comparative analysis between external and internal combustion engines. And then finally, we went to the internal combustion engines because our syllabus course is for internal combustion. External combustion is separately dealt with. Now, for internal combustion engines, what are the different types? What are the different nomenclature? What are the classifications? What is the configuration of the engine? Configuration of 4-stroke engine, configuration of 2-stroke engine. What is the valve timing diagram? What is the spark ignition engine, compression ignition engine? Comparison. What is the 2-stroke engine? What is the 4-stroke engine? Comparison. And what are the performance parameters? And how to determine those performance parameters. Everything we have discussed. That is your one chapter. The second chapter is the air standard cycle. For what are the assumptions for inbuilt in the air standard cycle, and what is the auto, diesel, dual, 3 cycles, the analysis, the thermal efficiency calculation, and the mean effective pressure determination, and the comparison between these 3 cycles. That also we have done. So now I'll tell you please have to go through all the worked out problems in these 2 chapters in the book by V. Ganesan. And the 3rd chapter today we have started, that is on carburation. We will be proceeding next day. I am hopeful that I'll complete this chapter. Yes.
Okay, sir. So how many chapters are left for this?
How many chapters there is? How many chapters? It is as many chapters as we can complete. Because we are seriously had to go for direct class. Online class